Welcome to episode 52 of the Good Guy podcast. This is the first interview podcast in a little while, so I'll keep the intro nice and short with just me in it. The guest this week, we're doing these are coming out every Friday, so this will come out on Friday the fucking something of something. What date's it today? Friday the 15th of May. It was recorded today, Wednesday the 13th of May. Still in lockdown if you're not in lockdown watching this. If you're listening back or watching back, if you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, drop a little review in the review bit and subscribe. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and give us a subscribe there. That would be fantastic. My guest is Chris Walley, who is a wonderful friend of mine. Star of The Young Offenders on BBC and RTÉ series 3 coming out soon, I guess. I mean, he said it was ready to go in the podcast, so it'll be out when it's out. And what else? Yeah, just to plug all my stuff that's normally on every week. We've got the Monday solo podcast, which is available on all the same places this is. We've got Tuesdays and Thursdays is Doing Bits, the show where we go through new material with top comedians, myself and Ishan Akbar. That's on live at 7:30 on YouTube, and it comes out podcast wherever you get it. Just type in Doing Bits and follow that on Instagram as well at Doing Bits Live. Fridays is the podcast with the guests. Saturdays I have a new stand-up clip or sketch coming out every week, and Sundays is the Sunday roast where you can request me to be funny and mean to all your friends. Thanks again to all the Patreon people for helping to support the Good Guy podcast through lockdown and all those things. If you would like to support me putting out 4 podcasts, a video, the Sunday roast, all sorts of stuff every week, jump on patreon.com/Vittorio Angelone, give as little as £1 a month. But again, if a bunch of people do that, makes such a difference to someone who has lost a colossal amount of work over the course of lockdown. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say in the intro. You've all been fantastic for supporting. If you're new to the podcast, hit subscribe, get involved. It's really fucking good. We've got some cracker guests lined up, as well as the fantastic Chris Walley. And I will see you on the other side. Thanks very much.
Did you get questions?
Yeah, I got a couple extra followers straight away as well, which is always nice.
Did you?
That was like that time when you jumped on the live.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was so funny that like 40 people joined and then you disappeared and I was just left with a bunch of 15-year-olds from Cork.
Yeah, I forget that if I go. See, I never go live. I forget that if I go, it comes up on mine as well.
Yeah, it does. It's like Chris Walley just went live with
I only come on for like 10 seconds and then leave.
Yeah, but it's so funny, man. It's all these people. I was just
That's
sat
not
there.
him. Who's that?
I get all
Who's
mad.
this
Like,
fella?
I might have tagged you in it. Somebody sent in a podcast question for my solo podcast and was like, "Would you ever be in Young Offenders?" And I was like,
Oh yeah, you like asked them. Yeah.
"It's not my choice."
Yes. Would you ever be in? I don't know, man. Maybe.
I'll see if I have time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like fucking mad. Right, we'll officially start. This is the Good Guy podcast. Last time we did this, the podcast had a different name. That's how long
was
ago
it?
it was.
50,
42.
42 podcast.
42. So if you're listening,
That was a cool little logo as well.
it
though.
was cool, man.
I still have to get that T-shirt off you. I owe you a tenner.
I mean, I have a pile of t-shirts that are now useless to everyone.
Yes. So it's worth a $5 now.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you can afford, Chris. I know you're.
All right.
I know you're struggling at the minute. But that was mad. Like that's 2 years ago. Like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So.
And it's been
Vittorio
mad
came
for
out
you. What do you? We'll talk about. So explain what happened last time, because we didn't really know each other.
No, we didn't. No. Wasn't that the arrangement? You said, "Do you want to come on?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." I was trying to think when we met first was out in. We met first out in. Out when you were in Guildhall, right? In the park, wasn't it? Leah's birthday or something. Leah in my year, and then
I think
you
we'd met
you
very
as
briefly.
skinhead.
Yeah, that was the day after I'd shaved my head.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
But I think we'd met briefly. I have a vague memory of being in RADA and going to see one of Leah's shows and hearing your accent and being like, "Oh man, where are you from?"
Yeah, friend. Yeah.
But yeah, there was that thing in the park. And then, did I ask you on the day? I was like, "Come on, do a podcast."
No, no, I think we just were like, oh yes, Irish boy, do you like pints? So yeah, let's go for pints. That was the arrangement that was made then, and I think it was a good while after that then that you came out to Tooting, out to my place, and we just played Fortnite and drank cans.
It was an interesting. I mean, I felt violently ill listening back to my little like intro by myself.
Really?
I was just like, Jesus, you're a fucking idiot, aren't you?
Do you notice yourself getting way better? Obviously, you would.
Yeah,
Like, I
for
imagine,
sure.
yeah.
I'm so much better. What's interesting, like, it's kind of like I look back at the first episode. There's a point in the very first episode with a guy called Mark Rainbow where he literally says to me,
Mark
like,
Rainbow.
yeah, that's his actual name.
What a
He's
name.
a cool guy. He's a Buddhist. And he literally said to me, like, do you want to phrase that as a question at one point? And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm really fucking this up.
Just statementing at him.
But I am definitely better at it. Yeah, so I came out to Tooting. We played Fortnite. That was literally, it was the 7th of March, 2 years ago. So it's almost exactly kind of close enough to 2 years. Just over 2 years.
Well, I was still at drama school, right?
Yeah, I think I was still at Guildhall as well.
Yeah, I think I was just about to finish up. I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, you were just about to start Lieutenant of
Rehearsals.
Inishmore.
Oh yes, okay, right.
Maybe you were in rehearsals.
No, I wouldn't have been then if it was March. I would have just been about to
Yeah.
finish up at drama school. Yeah.
So I mean, it's been a mad 2 years for you. What are your like highlights from the past 2 years?
I don't know. It all kind of all goes so fast. Like, I mean, it doesn't feel like that long ago. Like, I mean, even when I went over to London for drama school, like, it doesn't feel like long ago at all. Those kind of 3 years just feel like a bit of a blur. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was great. Like, to have that first job out of drama school to be lieutenant was just a dream first sort of job.
I mean, if
out,
someone
like,
said to you when you went to RADA, this is going to be your first job out, you would have been like, fuck off.
yeah, I know, man. It was mental. The timing, like just to be able to leave, and then at that time, a Martin McDonagh play was going to the West End with a part that was just like ripe for me. It was just perfect timing. So, yeah, I remember just hearing that it was happening. I was like, onto my agent straight away. I was like, "What's the crack with this? Like, can I get in for this?"
Yeah.
But yeah, man, do you know what? That play was just like. It was just the people made that, like Dennis Conway and Charlie Murphy and Aidan Turner and Daryl, Julian, Willard, like everyone we just had such a laugh.
Yeah,
we probably had too much of a laugh at times.
Yeah.
Like, we were a bit like fucking out every night. Like, but yeah, it was fun.
You spoke a good bit about that that process with how have I forgotten his name? You've literally just Dennis. There we go. With about how. And like even when you won your Olivier, which is probably a highlight from the past 2 years, you mentioned him and said like to learn off someone like him was such a great, because I think a lot of people come out of drama school with a lot of their brain very much full of knowledge, but really no sense of like how to apply everything, and kind of that lack of experience versus knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Like I think in that rehearsal room, it was just such a like open atmosphere. Definitely, like for the first day, like Michael Grandage, the director, established like where I felt like I could contribute ideas from like the get go. Even the first time we did it, he's like, "What do you think? Do you want to do this? Do you want to?" And so then I was like, "Okay, this is what this is going to be like," which was great. But Dennis, like, yeah, he's just a master at what he does, you know, and he's just such good crack. And I mean, we kind of both go at each other a bit, like Dennis, like, just kind of like joking with each other. But yeah, just to watch him like in his level of craft, and just he just changed it every night, you know, and he'd force you to listen to him. You had to listen to him because you didn't know what was coming.
That's great, because that's a thing I've spoken about with some. I spoke with Jonathan Harden. I don't know if you've you know Jonathan Harden. He does the Honest Actors podcast.
Yeah.
which is good. And he spoke about these kind of actors that when you're doing a play, people talk a lot about the fact that it is the same thing. Is potentially you get to a point where you're kind of tired of, and it feels like you're going through the motions. But you get those actors, and I had it in my one theater show where it was like you just like this one guy would just like do something mad, and you'd be like, oh, everyone just wakes up and goes like, oh fuck yeah, we're still playing, like this is still fun. No, that was, oh shit, no, I've done two, yes, but the one I'm thinking of is it was a longer run. So As You Like It was the Shakespeare I did. And then, but the Keepy Uppy was like a kids' theatre show that toured around. It was like a 2-month run.
Right.
Of like loads and loads of shows. So I was like, that felt more like a real kind of slog of like, okay, it felt maybe a little bit tired for 3 or 4 days, and then everyone had to consciously pick themselves back out.
Yeah. I think when it's funny with like shows like that, like even when you do a run for like 3 months or something, there's a period of time, I think it's usually like 2-3 weeks away from the end that it starts to go, okay, this is going. And then you're like, but if you actually had, like, I've heard from people, I've never done a run longer than that, but I've heard that if you do a run that's like 6 months, you actually don't feel that until like the 5th month. It's just whenever you're approaching the end, it kind of starts to go, a bit. But I mean, everyone was just changing it up constantly. And I mean, you have so much fun then as well when that starts to happen. Like, it's just such a laugh. You're like, what are you doing? And then you're like, what am I do this? And then like it just becomes like, so much crack.
It's games within games, and I think it's a struggle sometimes because you don't want to disrespect the audience by being like, you never want to have in jokes on stage. That's like the worst possible thing you could ever have. It would just be so like detaching for the whole thing. Yeah, and it's like, and you hear about people trying to make each other corpse and this whole thing, and I think there's a really fine line between something that keeps you excited so that it still seems exciting on stage, but then you don't want to just be playing to each other and kind of being. I
mean, you do hear those like the age-old stories that are like, I mean, class to hear now. Like, I mean, if ever I'm just bored at home, I just put on the Richard Harris, like Peter O'Toole, Burton, like them all talking in interviews about like just the stuff they got up to. Like, it's just hilarious. Like, I just want to be pals with them. Like, I wish I could just go back and have a night out with all those lads.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I imagine at the time, if you were in the audience and like people were doing this, you'd be like pissed off.
Yeah,
but it's great for us to hear about them now. Well, I mean, you wouldn't be pissed off watching those lads act. So.
There's an interesting one. One of my favorites is that kind of really famous Royal Shakespeare Company of Judi Dench, Ian McKellen, and like that kind of bunch. They were doing Macbeth, which is like that. I think they filmed it. It's like one of the like.
Oh, I've seen that. I think I've seen that. Yeah,
like iconic performances of Macbeth, and they got to that point in the middle of the run where people just felt like they weren't in the room and it was just going through the motions, and Judi Dench like gave everyone a little red safety pin and was like, put this somewhere on your costume, and at the end of the show you have to tell me how many red safety pins you spotted throughout the show, which is like difficult because maybe that would be like if actors are pure like
right I mean, the intention is to make you more observant, but you could be like like, what?
Which is weird, but I guess if they're on that level, like I heard a mate of mine was in a play with Ian McKellen and I was like, what the fuck was that like? And it was a Shakespeare, and he was like, I think at this stage everyone, like, he's very old. I don't know how old he is exactly, but he's definitely in his 80s. Is he?
I don't know. He's old, all right. But I feel like he's stuck in the time void, though. Like, he's just, that's his age now, and he's going to stay there.
He's going to stay there forever. Yeah, I mean, he's never been young to me. Do you know what I mean? He's always been that old. Like 20 years ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, he's probably about 80, isn't he? But he definitely wasn't.
Yeah. We'll all get old and die, and he'll be like, "What? How's this fucker?" Yeah, no, he's been the same age forever.
But apparently, even when, because maybe his memory's starting to go a little bit, so anytime he would forget a line or anything like that, he can just improvise in Shakespearean, and just
I well believe it. Yeah,
and just
yeah,
plod
yeah,
along, and like it's all in like iambic and all, it all just like works, and everyone's just like,
yeah,
fuck you, you fucking
yeah. They were rehearsing the same time. What we were doing Lieutenant, they were rehearsing
hmm
Lear in the room next door. So it was just cool to be like on our lunch and listening to him do stuff and stuff like
yeah.
that. And one day when we were rehearsing, he just wandered into our rehearsal room and was watching us. And it was like no one told him he can't
Yeah,
stay. Like
obviously. If
you're
that
not
was
gonna say
anyone
that. And you're
else,
like,
you'd be
well,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
can
So
you fuck off? But you're just like,
he
hey.
he just watched. But yeah, no, he's really cool. He was a lovely guy as well when I spoke to him briefly.
Yeah, I always get excited with people like you were talking about with Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole, and then even him and Patrick Stewart, where it's like you see these artists and they're not always in this doing the same thing. Sometimes it's like artists and musicians, or like there's a lot of it in America with like rappers and comedians and that kind of thing. I love these stories of little groups. It just makes it seem so much more human that for
Well, when they
them,
all kind of
when they're all
were
just
around the
palling
same
about,
time.
yeah, and it's like
Yeah,
the stories of Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole for me is like it really just frames them as like these two
normal
guys were just
lads.
mates, and they
Yeah.
were just going about like living their lives and doing dumb stuff in their 20s because everyone
I
fucking
mean, they did
does.
some horrific stuff as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I'm
But
sure. I'm sure we haven't heard half of it, but yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite exciting.
Sure, they
Like,
were at Dram. Yeah, like I love in some of the stories just hearing about them when like one was at Rad, O2 was at Rad, and Harris was at Lambda. Like, and
hmm
they lived together in a little like tiny flat, like,
yeah,
and just like it's just gas.
yeah. But it's exciting, I think, for me as like because we've a group of mates who are like musicians, actors, comedians, and it's just this like little group of people, and I think it's so exciting to like to feel. I feel like everyone in a group of my friends are like all on like the forefront of like art in the next, and maybe that's like arrogant by me, but it's like I just think it's so exciting when I see my friends like jettison off into like when you won the Olivier, I have rarely been happier in my entire life. I literally sat down and watched your speech, and I was like, this is amazing. And it was just like, but it's so
Happier than me.
it's probably, I mean, maybe less drunk, but it's
Yeah,
like,
probably. Yeah,
but I think some people struggle with the concept of seeing their friends succeed, especially in an art form that they're involved in, and feeling jealousy and feeling a bit of resentment towards their mates. But I think one thing I pride myself on is that like I really work to just be happy for all my mates, and genuinely like anyone
yeah,
else's
yeah, yeah,
success
yeah.
is my success because we're all
But
part of that.
I mean, if you can do that as well, like, and you definitely can, like, and I'm the same. Like, I constantly just strive to be like that because she's jealousy just makes you more unhappy, and you can never have someone else's career. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't get it because you weren't right for it, so you
Yeah.
just have to be like. It was who was it? Yeah, was it Brian Cranston said something really cool like that before? He was like, if I get really close to a job and I don't get it and someone else did, he's like, I'm genuinely always really happy for them
Mm.
because I didn't get the job because I wasn't right for it. They did. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
wouldn't have been the right person for it.
It's
So
almost
isn't it?
like I think there's a thing with acting. This only just come into my head, so it probably won't make sense. There's a thing with acting that's also similar in relationships, where if you go in and try to be anything, if you try to be what they're looking for, and it isn't you being you, then it's never going to feel right and it's never going to match up right in a relationship. If you go in and try and be something that you think they want to be, then
Yeah,
you're just kind of living a lie, and then you'll come out and you'll feel a bit trapped after a while. And I think that's the thing with acting. You have to go into it and go like, I'm going to show you me. I'm not going to try and be who you want me to be. I'm going to show you my take
well,
on this.
yeah. My take on exactly.
And
Yeah.
then because it's a tricky thing with acting when it is like, do you know what I mean?
But you're yeah. It's that's the thing as well about self tapes, which I find funny because it can be a bit frustrating sometimes. It's like when you get a tape through or you get something through and you read it and you interpret it and you do a tape and then you send it off and the powers that be watch it then, and then you might get called into the room or you might hear nothing from it, and then because it's not what the director wanted, and you're like, well, I could do what you wanted,
Yeah,
but I
that's so
didn't know what you wanted. I'm
yeah.
giving you my take on it, which is sometimes I prefer to tape because it's just what you call it. But like sometimes then when you're in a room, like he can say something or she can say something, and you're like, oh yeah, of course, and then you change it completely because that's what acting is changing. Because otherwise, you're right. It's just your interpretation of what you've read.
Yeah, and I think it's. I hate that feeling. I think sometimes you get it in a room as well, where you do something, and you feel like they're not like you feel like they're almost patronizing you by saying something, like in this weird way to try and make you do something. But I'm like, just tell me what you want
Just
me to do.
yeah. Or else as well, like I love that. Like, do you know, at drama school, there's some real old school directors sometimes, and they just like, no, that's shit. And I'm like, great, just say it. Like, do you know what I mean? Don't mollycoddle it. Like, and then that's your job, just to take it and go grand and not be upset by it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a balance, obviously, but
yeah, there's
I don't
abusive
mind that.
kind of relationships and
there is, but like also it's like sometimes just say it how it is, and don't be precious. Just go, yeah, you're right. I tried it and it's not good, so let's leave it.
And it's about like it's creating that atmosphere of like shit stuff being like it's in rehearsals. That's a great like I always say I want to be swinging for home runs in everything I'm doing, and when you swing for home runs every time, then
You're gonna miss.
Sometimes you're gonna hit yourself in the face with the bat, and you're gonna look like a fucking idiot. But you have to go through all those processes, and you have to just put stuff out there. With acting and comedy as well, it's like, I'm gonna try and tell this joke, and it might be awful, but it also might be the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
And
Instead of just
you have to push the line to know where the line is.
Yeah.
And it's that I think the best directors create that atmosphere where you feel safe to make mistakes, and I think that's a big benefit. And I'd like to know your thoughts on this with drama school. For me, it seems like it's a great place for 3 years if you treat it in the right way to make mistakes and get things really wrong without financial pressure on it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think everyone's experience of drama school is so different and like so worldly different as well in ways that like I'm like, really, was that yours? Because it's all about the individual and how they take it and respond to stuff, and I mean everyone's treated different as well. So you know, but I think drama schools. I'm really glad I went when I went, because I think drama schools, in my opinion, from what I've heard, are changing so much now in a way where it's people. I think like there is a balance. But I think sometimes things are in danger of becoming a little too sensitive to everything now. And like when you go to drama school, it's going to be a hard place that like you are vulnerable and you will get broken down and you will get whatever. And I think that's part of it. And if you try to protect that too much, you're losing the very thing, which is why you go there, to be broken down and build back up and experience this range of things. And I feel like if you're being kind of mollycoddled too much, or I don't know, like then you lose that thing that I found to me was the most valuable thing about going there, was being torn down and feeling like, and that was the one thing that I loved, and I feel like that might be lost now. Now, having said that, maybe someone else would benefit more from this way, but I certainly wouldn't have. That was when I found it.
Yeah, I think I struggle with people kind of tiptoeing around me, because I just like if anyone gives me any leeway, like I'm a little dickhead, like I will just dance around the leeway and find a way to get away with, right. Like maybe not doing the work, or like not whatever, where someone's like, no, that wasn't good enough, you need to be better at this, and like tells you when you're doing stuff wrong, I respond so well to that.
Oh yeah, I'm the same, because like sometimes you go in, you're like, this is class, I think it's great, and then someone's like, what is that? You're like,
oh shit.
Oh yeah, actually that's not good, is it? Yeah, and it forces you to. Yeah. No, I'm the exact same as that as well.
That's what you want. Do you ever, on a kind of related point with the drama school thing, there's a balance I think that people talk about with drama school a lot, where some people think it doesn't focus enough on the profession and like life as an actor. So, for example, people will say, why did we only have like 2 classes on self-taping when that's such a large part of what you do, and like why do we
I
not
yeah
have like a month of classes on how to do your tax return? And
yeah no yeah
everyone
yeah
can learn how to do a tax return.
exactly, and you don't want to be learning about that stuff. But also the self tape thing, like I've heard that thing before. And to be honest with you, I was probably one of those people as well, going, "Hear more acting for camera." But it's like, I think if you the way it's based as well at the moment, I sound like so old school now. It's like you can. I feel like you can take stuff back a lot more. Like if you being taught in a classical or a theatrical way, which most of them are based on, it's easier to bring it back and bring stuff up. So if the
Yes.
basis is more theatrical than film, then I think it's easier to go backwards and tone stuff down than to bring it up. And also self tapes, like it's not much to it. Like really,
Yeah,
set up a backdrop like with a good camera and just do the tape.
What's mad to me is like some of my mates who are like have done the best, who have like worked the most since leaving drama school, just refuse to buy a tripod and still prop their phone up on like a pile of books on top of a chair on top of a table.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're not broke. Like, what?
Oh yeah, but like, even if you look up on YouTube, like some of those tapes, like some of the tapes, like for massive things, it's literally like some lads doing it on a selfie stick, like in a cupboard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did he get this?
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
you that like your acting will shine through above kind of everything else, and also you like if the casting director just sees you in that role.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes people just before you say anything, they're like, yeah, or no,
Spot on. I mean,
which is frustrating.
our mate
Yeah.
Niall McNamee had that thing in his where wasn't it like some casting director was like, "I'm putting on Romeo and Juliet, and I think you're Romeo," just in an audition for something else.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just
At a
like,
gig, he was playing guitar. What?
he thought it was a
Really?
heckler.
Well, when did that happen?
Apparently, I
haven't
think
heard
he
that
was
one.
auditioned for like a background role in something, and somebody who was on the panel was like, "I think you're Romeo for this thing I'm making."
I believe it.
And he is like, have you
Niall.
ever met a more Romeo looking
Yeah.
man in your entire life? Oh man. What else?
Listen to his music, his new song actually it's classic.
I listened to it today
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, he's so handsome. Do you ever feel creatively stifled by acting because so much of it is out of your hands?
No, I don't think so. Is that like I know what you mean, how you could feel that way, but I don't ever really because yeah, I mean that's the nature of it. Do you mean like with editing and stuff, the way they
Well, the editing and well, less that stuff, but the fact that it's like someone else has written it, you might not agree with all of the writing. You
yeah,
might not
no,
agree with
no,
all of the
I don't
direction.
know. Because I think when you do something, you're like that's the case, so it's not
Yeah.
like something that's been imposed on it. Then that's a prerequisite. Like so, no, I've never felt that way. I think you might feel. I could imagine if I'd written something and someone else directed it, or if I'd written something and I was like saw someone else playing what I'd written and they were doing it like not wrong, like in their interpretation, which is just as valid, if probably not more, maybe. But I'd be a bit like, no, but not acting. No, I wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think that's a difficulty when people write and direct something. They feel this complete like ownership over it, and maybe sometimes struggle to let actors be creative. I think it depends on who's working in the team with you. I think there's spaces where someone lets you be creative and lets you put forward ideas in a rehearsal room, but there's some where you just feel I've heard actors talk about just feeling like, a bit like a wind up toy, where the director's just like do it like this every time and that's it.
Yeah, right. I think I might have only experienced that once in drama school in some production I did, but not even a final year one. I think it was a different one, but I've been lucky. I've actually never really had someone just be like, do it like this.
Yeah. And to phrase probably a similar question in a different way, do you ever feel a pull towards creating in a different way, whether it's writing or like performing in a different way or any kind of other stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah. No, I kind of I mean, this is every actor at the moment. It's like, I'm writing at the moment, actually. but me and my friends are writing at the moment. Who's an actor as well. We're very nearly finished the first draft of something, which I'm quite happy with actually at the moment. But I mean, we'll wait and send it off to people now and see what happens. But
Yeah, I mean, anything I write, I come back to 2 months later and go, fuck, that's dog shit.
yeah. I know, right? But we've been doing this now for like 2 months. And I keep coming back to it and be like, no, actually, it's okay. And that's something that I think I'd always want to do, is write with someone else. I wrote a short as well last year, the year before. I don't know if I ever sent that to you or told you about it, but that looks like that's something that might happen, or a few people are interested in doing it. But I know I want to direct that as well. So that'll be what if it gets done, I'll like have written and directed it. But there's no part for me really in it. But with this thing that I'm writing now, is with a friend, we've both written ourselves as the leads. Like, so, I mean, you're not going to write something.
That's what they say. Create your own work. Put yourself in it.
Yeah,
why wouldn't you?
Exactly. But no, I definitely feel that desire to do that. Probably not direct until a good while down the road, but writing at the moment definitely. But directing is something I would definitely be interested in. But I think I'd want to spend a lot more time on sets and observing and learning, because I just think it's so, like, it just blows my mind sometimes watching directors doing stuff and they're like working, everything's like, like, I'm like, how are you doing that? Yeah,
I mean, I make tiny little sketches and I can barely think of what shot comes next and what order everything. And Christopher Nolan's got like 12 timelines in his head.
He
is. Just like, how the fuck are you doing that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, obviously there's incredible directing on different scales and stuff, but like, and different storylines. But someone like Christopher Nolan, like, imagine trying to direct Memento and like Inception
and Dunkirk,
like, you know, all these such intricate plot lines. Like, how are you? Oh,
it is so mad. But then I saw something recently. It was, do you know those? I mean, there's fucking loads of them out at the minute. Those ads for Masterclass.
Yes,
that are on everything. Yeah. And it was the one for David Mamet, and he said the process of a second draft is basically making the first draft look like you meant everything that happened, which I think is such a relieving thing to hear, because sometimes you get into your head that, like, when someone wrote this story, they had all of these interlinking things in mind straight away. Whereas I think the case more often is that they went out with an idea for a story, and as it kind of appeared in front of them, they worked out a way to go back over it and structure it in a way.
And so why are you saying in the second draft then, like, once everything's figured out, you're like, yeah, okay, this is supposed to happen?
Yeah, so as you're going through the first draft, you might be like, oh yeah, and that would make sense back there, but you never planned that in the first place. But then in the second draft, you maybe drop, like, it's like, a great example is In Bruges, where the writing in Bruges, every moment in the first half of the movie links up with a moment in the second half of the movie. So every little thing, like if you haven't seen In Bruges, here's some spoilers. So when he jumps off the bell tower, it's like he drops the coins off the top of the bell tower, but way early in the film, he has that altercation with the ticket guy where the ticket guy doesn't take all of his coins off him. And I was... Okay. So it's like, I think the bell tower moment was written before the ticket office moment.
Yeah, right.
He wanted to do the coins things, but he had to set it up earlier. So it's not, I think, when you watch something in chronological order, you're like, oh, that's how it must have been written. But it's kind of nice to remember that that's definitely not how it happens.
Yeah, no, it's usually that, the bigger idea, and then, oh, let's drop these little breadcrumbs earlier or something like that. That's such a great film.
Oh, just amazing.
Yeah.
What have you been watching or consuming during quarantine?
What have I been? I've been pretty bad this last week. I've not really watched anything. What did I watch recently?
Funny. Some people would say the opposite. They'd be like, I've been so bad, I've just been watching TV all day.
Yeah, no, I haven't. What did I watch last? I watched Moneyball. I'd never seen that before, actually. I put that up. Have
What's it
you
about?
not seen it with Brad Pitt, the baseball team? It's good. It's actually very good. I really enjoyed it. It's basically a Brad Pitt. It's a true story. Baseball coach, and it's like for a team that doesn't have much money at all, and they're financially like at the end of the league, and at the end of the league as well in terms of rankings. But when they're trying to basically do their trades for the year, this guy comes in with a new philosophy, and it's like the Jonah Hill's kind of character, and Brad Pitt work together basically. Instead of trying to get the best players, get players that are good at one thing. So like they're bad at everything else. They're not bad, they're just not the best at everything else, but they're really good pitchers, or they're really good like one attribute, and by putting them all together making a super team, but they're all super cheap. So as together they're unbelievable, but as individual players they're not. And it's true story, and they end up going like to the top of the league, and it's class. Good film actually.
I'll add it to my list.
What else? Sorry, I just ranted on about Moneyball there.
No,
what
that's
else did I watch? Yeah, Normal People. Of course, Normal People. Yeah, binge through that.
Yeah, I did. Amazing. I think I was served quite well by the fact that me and Izzy decided to watch it at the same time. So
right.
I didn't rinse through it in like a day or two. We spent like 2 weeks, like every couple nights, watching 2 episodes or maybe 3 episodes at a time. So I felt I had time to really like process it.
I absolutely plowed through it because you couldn't watch it over here, obviously, only because of I'm back in Ireland now. But my cousin gave me the VPN thing. You know, you can change your VPN, and I think I watched it all then in like 3 days or something. Yeah. But I mean, I have so many, all my mates, loads of my mates from back home are in. Like I literally know everyone in the cast nearly. So it was just so great to watch them all, and it's just such good television. Like I was like, this is some of the best TV I've seen in a long time. I'm so glad
that they got it done and out during quarantine, because I think if normal life had been going on, I think it's a program that takes such investment from you as a viewer
and sensitivity, like
that people maybe wouldn't have given it the time or like devoted the time or the emotional energy to it, because they would have been like, oh fuck, I have to go to work, I have to go to, like, you know, like it very much suited. It has a real stillness.
It did,
to it.
Yeah. It was good timing, but oh my god, it's good, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, I did a full fucking hour and 17-minute podcast.
I know. Yeah, right.
And the next week on the podcast, I was like, I have so much more to say about the movie. But I can't. I just had to compartmentalize it. I think it's actually like, on a level, I think it's like emotionally like traumatized me in a way, where anytime a clip comes up on Instagram or Twitter, I like scroll past it and like have like a mini freak out.
Because when you're kind of sitting down to watch it, you're in it. You're ready to go there. If it comes on like in everyday life where everything's a bit like this, and suddenly like, how are you today? Yeah. And everything slows down, you're like, no. It's like when those like ads come on the TV, you know, sometimes those charity ads or like the car crash ads that make you feel terrible. You have to turn them off.
Do you have those? Because Northern Ireland is like infamous for having the most brutal car crash ads.
Oh yeah, really, like it starts off really happy, and it's like, oh, this must be an ad for like McDonald's, and then all of a sudden someone's smashed against the wall, and oh, I try to turn them off.
They're so but it's like, I think Northern Ireland needs that, because it's such a traumatized country full of traumatized people, that if you just show them,
why does it need it?
But it's like, because if you want to tell them, if you want to shock them into not drink driving,
this is how you
need to really shock them, because it takes a lot to shock a 40-year-old man from West Belfast. Right, you know what I mean?
Get Tarantino in to do all the car.
Honestly, really. Because if you just had like, because a lot of the English ones just like hint, you just hear off screen like, and you're like, it's like, oh no. Whereas in Belfast, you'd be like, oh fuck, and that's just background noise.
Right. Yeah, they do show it. The Irish ones are. Yeah, they show everything. As a child being like scared, like, oh, you want to walk everywhere, Mom?
Yeah, proper mad. I wanted to talk about, because we talked about how the first podcast that we did together, was we didn't massively know each other, and you've said there's a specific day where we became close, and I definitely agree. And I think it's interesting. I've been trying to work out if I have that with other people that I know, where I can pin it down to like, oh, this is the day we really kind of connected. And it was the day when we went drinking around like Old Street and Shoreditch, you know?
Oh yeah. That was way after that podcast, though.
Yeah, probably a year.
Oh yeah. Jesus, that was someday, all right.
That was such mad crack.
Yeah. It was just you, me, and my old flatmate Josh, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just chaos. And I think there was such a mad...
Yeah. Thinking back at the fear like of that night.
Yeah, we had such bizarre experiences where we like... It was... Remember we pretended we were tourists to get into that club for cheap?
And then we paid to go in there, and then we left because it was so bad.
Yeah.
And I like pretended I fell down the stairs and was like injured.
You were trying to get your money back. You're like, I sprained my ankle.
Because we'd been in there for like 5 seconds, and then we're like, "This is awful." But I think that's because we were both really annoyed, like because we went to Shoreditch, didn't we? And every single place you go there, it's like tenner in.
Yeah.
And we dropped about 120 quid on entering places alone, like before all this. We met up to watch the Irish match, didn't we?
Yeah, the Heart at the Moon, which is a beautiful pub in Hoxton.
Yeah, that was
and we had that. I thought it was such a funny moment where we were talking to a group of girls who were Irish, and there was the classic like, "Oh, where are you from? Where are you from?" And then one was like, "Where are you from? Do you?" And then you said, "Where are you from?" Specifically
Cork.
in Cork, but whereabouts?
Glamire.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, is that where they film Young Offenders?" And I've never laughed as much in my entire life because they didn't recognize you, because you've got this. It's quite a good thing that's happened, because you don't look like that character that kind of a lot of people would recognize you for if you walked about the street looking like that.
It's the versatility, man. It's the transformation.
Oh man, you're just a chameleon. I think it's not the hair or the eyebrow or anything.
No, definitely not that. Definitely not.
But I remember and it took her like 2 minutes to be like, "Oh fuck, that's not you, is it?"
Yeah, right. You're right.
Oh,
I do.
man.
Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, that was good crack that day. That was a great day. It was so sunny. So, do you know what? It was probably about this time last year, you know.
Six Nations is probably February, March.
Okay, so last month maybe. No, yeah, it was March. Yeah, okay, I'm wrong. Yeah, it's probably March. I'm trying to justify it. I'm like, no, maybe it was. Yeah,
so that would have been pretty much exactly a year after we did that podcast.
There you go.
Wow, how strange. We're probably about 40 minutes into the podcast, and I will jump over to Instagram because we got some questions on the old Instagram. Oh my god, terrible grammar from the fans. This is a really good one from my friend Dan. For the rest of your life, would you rather only consume art, music, literature, film, etc. written before you were born, or stuff from your lifetime?
From my lifetime.
From your lifetime?
Yeah.
Why?
And
give examples of what you would be missing. Like what stuff that's from before you were born that you'd be like, fuck, I'd never be able to watch that again.
Well, I just think I always have a funny thing that like it's like, do you know, if you're watching sport or you're watching a match, and say if you're watching a fight or something like that, and you're like, I'm not staying up till 4 to watch that, so I'll record it.
Yeah.
Even if I wake up in the morning and haven't checked what the result is or anything, it's just like I'm not witnessing it now. Like it's not now, and I don't feel like I'm part of it. It's like that's done, and now I'm just looking back on it, which obviously is still amazing. And I love like going back and watching all the classics and all that stuff, but I want to feel like I'm part of something and like excited about what the future holds, because for me the future is a lot more exciting than the past. Like, you know, you don't know what's going to happen, and that's why I love doing what I do and like what we do, is because if I have security in life, like the idea of knowing where I'd be in 10 years terrifies me, or even next year. I love going like, oh yeah, it could be broke, or else I could be doing some mad
Yeah.
shoot. Some like you don't know. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And
But what would
I
I
think
miss?
I like my art to be like really on the pulse of what's happening now. I'm very aware. Like this happened
Yeah,
even recently. I watched Jerry Seinfeld's new special on Netflix, and I was just like, "You're a dinosaur. Like you were the best to do this, and you revolutionized the art form. But the art form has now moved past you because of you, and it no longer feels culturally relevant what you're doing."
yes, yeah. And everything has its time. Like and like,
Hmm.
yeah, thank you for that. But now
Yeah.
it's different. Now it's yeah. I think yeah, no, definitely the future. I probably what would I miss? I mean, just yeah. Oh, I mean, all the great films. Like I remember The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. When I watched that for the first time, I was like 16. And I was like, oh my god! And seeing like the birth of all those like the stare
Which
offs
are
and those
now like
shots.
parodies. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like and like the ecstasy of gold. Like when that music comes on and like your man's running around the graveyard trying to find that grave. It's just
Yeah.
so unbelievable. Like cinema. Um, I mean, I'd miss the Rolling Stones a lot.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just what I.
music, I guess.
Mm. But yeah,
And then that's a good. That I think I'm a like current lifetime one as well. I just think. What did you watch on that live sport thing that you mentioned? Did you watch the most recent UFC?
I didn't watch. I watched it the next day, and it just didn't feel good.
I just didn't feel.
Yeah,
But how
I
did?
did watch it though the next day. It's so mad because you can hear everything. Did you watch it?
Yeah, it was so bizarre. I watched it the next
It's
day as well. It was bizarre.
but you can hear everything. Like like when you hear people getting smacked, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's like no, I've never heard that noise before.
And I want to hear someone in there that gets like real mouthy because you'd hear all the trash
Oh,
talk.
I'd love to watch McGregor in that kind of like audio where you can just hear everything he's saying.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. I mean, this, yeah.
I mean,
I enjoy.
every fighter pretty much in their like in the interviews afterwards said that they actively were listening to Daniel Cormier, one of the commentators, and adjusting their tactics in the moment
Because of what a commentator
they
was
could
saying.
hear the commentary, which they can never normally hear. Because Daniel
Yeah.
Cormier is like currently like only within the last year won the heavyweight UFC belt, so it's
Yeah.
like he knows what he's fucking, and he's like, oh no, he should be doing this, and then at one point on the commentary, they're like, yo, I think we should talk quieter, like,
Yeah. Like
can hear
the fighters
us.
are like their coach is telling them to shut up.
Yeah,
I'm trying to listen to the commentator.
that's mad. This one's from Kieran Thompson. Is the Young Offenders returning this year? I remember I listened back to that episode. I kept calling it Young Offenders, and you kept getting annoyed at me for
Was it
for not
the
saying
young
the.
Yeah. What? I sound like a little prick. It's actually yeah, it should be. It should be. I don't know what the crack is with all. It's filmed. It's filmed and it's finished. But I don't know what's happening with if they're going to delay things or move
sure
things
all the
forward or push
timelines
things
are-
back.
Because
Yeah,
there's a
it
benefit
should
to
be out
coming
this
out
year.
in quarantine, but then there's I'm sure there's marketing things that they want because there's so
Yeah,
much coming
I've
out.
heard of some channels are pushing things that were supposed to come out like this week or next week to like next year
Yeah.
because they're afraid they won't have any new content. So
Yeah,
I don't think that.
I think we're heading
know.
into rerun territory. I think people have really reveled in having stuff ready to go, but then I think some channels are like, "Oh wait."
Yeah, but apparently, do you see that they've given the green light to start shooting if they can do it safely? Like,
And then I
So-
saw someone be like, "Good luck to the makeup girls doing
yeah, big
with
sticks.
a broom."
Yeah. We'd all have to just get very good at it ourselves.
We'd all just
I
have to
don't know. It'd
get.
be so
Maybe
interesting.
we'd have to get very, very handsome. Just
Yeah,
everyone has to
exactly.
have real spot on like skincare
Yeah.
routines.
Yeah.
This is a question from someone who maybe thinks you're a comedian, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. In like if you were going to do a 5-minute stand-up set, so what they've said is, what is a good starting point for developing a set, choosing what you think may work? And I'll address it later. But if you had to do, say you had 1 month or 1 week, 1 month. You're far too talented to have 1 month. If you had 1 week to prepare a 5-minute stand-up comedy set for an open mic,
A 5 minute, okay.
what do you think you would talk about, and how
What do I think I would talk about?
it? Yeah.
I think, first of all, it has to be something very relatable. Like, not necessarily relatable, like everyone's done this thing, but within that thing, people have to be able to relate to like the emotions you'd feel, or like the anxiety these situations make. So I think have one like story, like one main story for the 5 minutes that you can deviate off and talk about different things. But then within that, thinking about like, I don't know, I always think of like, it's just the most simple things, like you know, I always think if people are like that go out and party and they don't drink, and they're like, why don't you just go out and don't drink? And you're like, well, why would I go out and not drink? That's like playing football in the garden without a ball. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's part of what I do. Like, you don't go out. And I think it's just finding links like that like,
it's those comparisons are always funny.
Yeah, comparison. Yeah,
and you find that with it's a tricky one, because it's almost become overdone, where I find people who've done stand-up comedy courses where they get like lessons and do homework and whatever, they all come out going da 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 da, that'd be like da 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 da, right. And you're just like
So that's what would have happened to me if I gone.
No, because there's still like some of the best comedians still use that, but I think, and something I had a problem with in the Seinfeld thing, is with Seinfeld you can see all of the cogs turning, and you can see all of the joke structures, like there's no attempt to disguise them, whereas something I think particularly Irish comedians are very good at is cloaking setup, punchline and comparisons into a story. And it's exactly what you just said, like having a 5-minute story to branch out of, so everyone just thinks you're talking about this story, but you're kind of disguising jokes within it. And with Seinfeld, it's just like, these are jokes, this is the setup, this is the punchline, these are the taglines after that.
Yes, yeah. And I think a big thing as well is finding, like, just from watching stand-up and from going to your shows and seeing other people, it's like finding what your niche is, like what makes you funny as a person if you take away all the jokes. Like,
did you do any, you're a big kind of clown stuff in RADA?
Yeah, we did some of that stuff. Yeah. Because
I read a book. I read a book. I love, because I've done through like Wind Up Penguin and stuff, going over to India and Greece and stuff. I've done like non-verbal theatre for kids that's supposed to make them laugh a lot. So I feel like a lot of it would be classed as clowning without any kind of technique applied to it. But there's always that thing about like acting existed before drama schools and clowning existed before clown schools. So kind of, if you're doing it, you're doing it. You don't necessarily need someone to teach you how to do it.
Teach you, yeah.
But I read a book about it to kind of solidify it and be like, I actually do want to kind of understand what's going on here and what the academic approach to this is. And one of the things that stuck with me is like, one of the exercises is to like go out on stage, sit down and do nothing in front of an audience for a whole minute. Like, don't smack your lips, don't sigh, don't raise your eyebrows, just sit as neutrally as you possibly can, and then just get up and walk away. And then at the after the show, just ask the audience what they got from it.
Right, yeah.
So it's just what you naturally give off as a person, and that's trying to find your like inner clown.
Fun. Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, that's it. That is really interesting. You could just be hilarious. Like, someone could find just the way you look. Like, that's the thing, is like exactly that. Like, James Acaster did that right at the start of one of his sets before. One of the things was like, I'm going to do my joke sitting down, and then he tied it in. But he just sat there for a while, or I saw him do some. But he's hilarious. I really like his stuff. But sometimes I'm listening, I'm like, if someone else was saying this isn't funny. It's the way you hold yourself, and the way he's a bit like awkward. It's just hilarious because he's found what his niche kind of is.
And it's
Yeah,
such an important thing to, because, and then the obvious version that people are like is the sad clown, but people are like angry clowns, but like some clowns like are like angry at the audience, some clowns are angry at the world, some clowns are angry at themselves. There's like a happy clown, a silly clown, like a cheeky clown. It's about like trying to expose yourself as much as possible. Because I think if I sit on a stage and do nothing, a lot of people would be like, yeah, you look quite sad,
yeah, yeah.
just because that's like my neutral face.
Dude,
I'll do
I
it.
wonder what I'd look like. You look quite stupid, man.
But that's interesting because a lot of my comedy is like setting up a big premise and then saying something completely stupid as a punchline.
Yeah, right.
What was the one you came to? Did you see my joke about whales? I think you did.
What was that? What was
Oh,
it
just
again?
about the fact that they're constantly holding their breath, and I think that's so mental.
Oh, I think, yeah, I love that one. Yeah.
But that's so stupid. But maybe that's like my clown is just this fucking
Yeah.
idiot, and I
That
quite.
was funny. I love the ones about the zoo as well. You had one about a zoo.
The zoo, yeah.
That was good.
I think that's my favorite.
Me and
joke
Ryan
of
went to
mine.
that one. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. But there's this interesting thing, this balance of like someone who is okay with being seen as stupid. So someone like Bob Mortimer is like, he's fine with seeming like the most stupid person in the room. And I struggle with, sometimes I think comedians, people will go like, oh, but he's actually very smart. And I think some comedians like to let you know that they're smart. Like I think Jimmy Carr likes everyone to know that he's smart. Whereas
Right.
Bob Mortimer,
I can see that. Yeah.
Bob Mortimer doesn't care if you think he's an idiot. Like our friend, you've met Luke, or maybe you haven't. Luke, Glaswegian musician, went to Guildhall.
I don't think so.
Or Martin Quinn as well. Or Tino.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's quite culturally like Glasgow.
Stuff on Instagram.
They're fine with seeming like an idiot.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I quite
because they
enjoy
never are in real life usually. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can't get to that level of what you do as well. Like
I
mean, comedy is emotional intelligence. Like if you're laughing with someone, or like if someone's witty, or someone's like that's such a high level of like fast intellect, like, and working situations out. And yeah,
I find it a difficult thing where the reason I think a lot of really great comedians end up being really, really good actors is because with comedy you are constantly aware of the thing that you could say that would ruin the atmosphere of the comedy gig, and you're constantly aware of the words that cause tension and the things that you could say that cause tension and the things that release tension, because that's comedy is like the control of tension and release, and you're constantly thinking about, but if I say this before this instead of after this, then it'll be tense, and then I have to work out the way around. So I think that when you approach a script, you're like, oh, that's a setup, like that creates tension, that line, and it's just something as basic as that.
Yeah. It's you put yourself out there more as well. Like definitely doing comedy, because if someone sees, standard acting, they're like, oh, okay. But if someone just sees standard comedy, you're like, that fella's not funny at all. Like, are there
people get very annoyed almost?
Yeah. Because I think if you go like, if someone's like, oh, I'm funny, then everyone's like, oh, okay,
yeah.
Let's see then. You think you're gonna make me laugh? Like, yeah.
We're comes back to Seinfeld as well. He used to have to tell his opening acts to not introduce him as the greatest comedian in the world, because no matter who you are, if someone goes, he's the greatest comedian in the world, everyone goes, is he?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
It's an impossible.
I'd be like that, like
100%. It just puts you in even if you've paid to go see Jerry Seinfeld and you agree that he's the greatest comedian in the world, something in your brain goes, fuck off.
Yeah. 100%.
We've got Sarah Buckley, which it definitely isn't a question. Great to see Tim Walley on the telly talking about coronavirus testing, which I might have missed.
Yes, that's my brother.
Oh, man.
My brother's an officer in the Navy, so he was on a show called Mayday. Yeah, so he was doing the family proud.
It's his turn
Yeah,
to
no, it's
be on
great.
TV.
Brilliant.
That's funny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Taking my fucking job. Like, yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'm a has-been now.
And then last one from Instagram. How many series do you think young offenders will have before you decide it's enough?
I don't know. It may be over now. It may not be. I don't know. To be
I'm sure there's only so much you're
genuinely
allowed
don't
to
know.
say
I
as
don't
well.
know.
and
I
the
feel
call.
like it's at a place as well where it could be done now, but you just don't know as well what
It's
will
hard.
happen.
Like you don't want to be one of those shows where people go, yeah, it went downhill after this series.
Exactly. So I think it's just figuring it out. If there's more stories to be told, then maybe we will. But at the moment, there's nothing planned as of yet. And yeah.
Well, I think that might be everything. Let me double check how long we've gone for. That has been 57 minutes.
Oh, look at that.
And I think it was a lovely podcast. So
It was.
I'll do an intro and outro either side just to like plug everything, whatever.
Sick.
So we can just end there, and thanks for coming on, Chris Walley.
Nice one, boy.
Right.
Good crack.
And that was Chris Walley, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Good Guy podcast. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at Vittorio Angelone. I post all sorts of funny stuff there, stand-up clips, poems occasionally. They're not quite as funny as the stand-up clips, but all sorts of stuff. And that's the best way to keep up on what I'm doing, whether it's doing bits Tuesdays and Thursdays, the Good Guy podcast Mondays and Fridays, stand-up clip on Saturdays, the Sunday roast on Sundays. Patreon.com/Vittorio Angelone. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're all great. Up the fucking good, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this episode with Chris